Chapter 21. The world calls him the #1 swordsman in Daxia. Let my younger brother take you down, the scholar, sitting cross-legged on the ground, said softly. The bearded man, standing to the side, stepped forward without hesitation, walking straight to the edge of the crack on the ground in front of him, and a heavy thud soon followed. The bearded man, who was the scholar's younger brother, was actually not tall. He was only about 6 feet. He could even be described as short, but he was incredibly sturdy, and his linen clothes were adorned with many beast armors, along with his full beard and extremely thick body hair. It made people involuntarily call him a strong man. Immediately after, the scholar, sitting cross-legged on the edge of the cliff, waved his hand, signaling Chen and the other to come to him. He reached out and grabbed the corners of their clothes, and in the blink of an eye, he had already brought Chen and the other to the bottom of the cliff. Chen stood still, surveying his surroundings. The bottom of this canyon was hundreds of feet below the ground, and the surrounding ground was covered with withered grass and gray stones. The rock walls exposed to the air on both sides were marked by traces of rain erosion. Looking up, the sky became extremely narrow. This canyon was extremely long, with no visible beginning or end, but it was not wide, at most only able to accommodate 8 people standing side by side, making it quite cramped. On the rock walls on both sides, there were stone caves resembling a beehive. From time to time, a sound like a baby crying could be heard, carried by the wind and echoing deep within the canyon. We've arrived. My younger brother will come to pick you up in an hour. Listen for the sound and look up. Don't get crushed. The scholar once again formed that familiar Dao seal, and softly said, "Knock!" The 3-foot blue edge shot out from his sleeve towards the sky. Immediately after, the scholar, who had been sitting cross-legged on the rock, disappeared, and in the blink of an eye, the bearded man beside him also vanished. After the two left, Chen took a deep breath, his expression somewhat wary as he held Huang Shikai's vengeful spirit in his left hand. Surveying his surroundings, prepare for battle. His plan was simple. Since killing Yao beasts in the Qi refinement stage could yield decent cultivation progress, why should he waste too much time in the Qi refinement stage? Although he didn't have many spirit stones to buy severely injured Yao beasts, killing them himself was the same, just riskier. Moreover, as long as he broke through to the foundation establishment stage, his pink word art could fully play its role. Increasing his cultivation as much as possible and achieving foundation establishment early was the true path. Very good. Fei Long let out a long sigh of relief, also taking out his spirit treasure long saber named Dragon Slayer from his embrace, holding it tightly in his hand, and standing behind Chen ready to face the enemy together. He and Chen had only known each other for 1 day. But the experiences of this 1 day were more stimulating than his 5 months since his transmigration. And by the cliff above the canyon, this young man, dressed as a scholar, sat cross-legged on the ground, his expression seemingly lost in thought as he looked up at the clouds on the horizon. He wasn't reading a storybook or cracking melon seeds. He seemed to be spacing out or lost in a daze. "Brother!" At this moment, the bearded man, who had been standing quietly to the side, suddenly said in a muffled voice, "He is the first person to squat down and speak with you. Why don't you follow him?" "Him?" The scholar only reacted then, and after a long moment, he couldn't help but chuckle softly. "He won't do. His strength is too weak and he has no power. He is useless to us. A long time ago he had been searching for a good master, but none had succeeded. The reason he gave his younger brother was that he needed his master to respect him. At least when recruiting him they could squat down and speak to him so he wouldn't have to look up. His younger brother had been dull-witted since childhood and trusted him implicitly, so he naturally believed him. However, every power that came to recruit him, let alone squatting down to speak with him, not a single one had their family head or sect master come in person to recruit him. They were all subordinates. Those family heads and even the Grand Elder were unwilling to make a personal trip, as if personally coming for the two brothers would lower their status. But the bearded man's voice became a little weaker. "Brother, you don't have much longer to live. You were once the first sword cultivator of Great Xia, but your cultivation has now fallen to the foundation establishment stage, 3rd level. If you don't find a good master soon, you will die. The scholar, sitting cross-legged on the ground, summoned a miniature 3-foot blue edge, and looked with a complex expression at this sentient-like spirit treasure, which was trembling and expressing joy in front of him. He remained silent. He began cultivation at 13, perfectly achieved foundation establishment at 15 with the heavenly Tao, and entered the golden core realm at 24. His initial word art and the word art he obtained in subsequent major realms were extremely compatible with a sword cultivator. And in several secret realms and grotto heavens, he acquired various word art and cultivation techniques suitable for him. At 27, he single-handedly fought the top 3 on Great Xia's Tianjiao ranking, not falling behind, and after 3 hours of intense battle, he slew all 3 of them with a single sword stroke to the throat, thereby making his name known throughout the world. The world called him the first sword cultivator of Great Xia. They called him young and promising. Achieving success at a young age, he naturally felt he was as high as the heavens. Thereafter, his actions became increasingly willful, and he even once believed that a sword cultivator should be willful. Those who were timid were not worthy of being called a sword cultivator. He would right what was unjust and kill those he detested. He believed there was nothing in the world he couldn't set right, and no one he couldn't kill. He offended countless people, but no one could stop him. People only knew him as White Robe, the first sword cultivator of Great Xia, but no one knew he had a younger brother, and that he and his younger brother shared a bloodline word art. No matter where he went, his younger brother would always be within 10,000 li, waiting for him. Once he encountered danger, he would instantly teleport away. Yes, the teleportation range of their bloodline word art was not 100 li but 10,000 li. As long as he wanted to leave, no one in the world could stop him. His younger brother was a bit foolish. Every time he came home and told his younger brother about his prestige outside, his younger brother would always be puzzled and find it uninteresting, only telling him to be careful. He didn't know what it meant to be careful. He only knew that when everyone in the world was discussing him, when everyone in the world called him the first sword cultivator of Great Xia, he was very happy. He would even specially stop and secretly listen to those who admired him. Later he finally fell. There are no eternal myths in the Jianghu. His former reputation in Great Xia, if not known to every household, was at least known to half the people, but now no one discusses him anymore. As if Great Xia had never had a first sword cultivator. Or perhaps there was already a new first sword cultivator. Only 4 years had passed and he had died in the Jianghu. No one discussed him anymore. No storyteller recounted his deeds with rising and falling intonation. Anymore. In that battle, he was severely wounded by 3 golden core late-stage cultivators, and relying on his word art, he feigned death to escape. His cultivation greatly declined, and a bone-eating poison was planted in his body, leaving him with no choice but to wait for death. He had to change his appearance and name, and hide with his younger brother in this corner of Fufeng City in Great Xia. There was only one condition for recruiting him, to give him a heavenly Tao treasure jade, priced at 3,000 spirit stones. With the heavenly Tao treasure jade, although he couldn't recover to the golden core stage, he could resolve the bone-eating poison in his body, making his daily life less painful, removing the threat of death, and allowing him to live for several more decades. And within these decades, he could once again protect his younger brother. Although he no longer had his former prestige, at least he would have no worries about food and clothing. It was just this price. No power could afford it, and no power was willing to pay it. He also couldn't say that he used to be the first sword cultivator of Great Xia and was worth that price. Chapter 22. Talisman of Heaven's Path. Talisman of Heaven's Path Recall. Chapter 22. Heavenly Tao Talisman. Heavenly Tao Retrospective Talisman. He didn't tell his younger brother the true conditions for recognizing him as master. He knew his brother too well. If his brother knew, he would definitely sneak into the secret realm without telling him, or use other means to earn spirit stones for him. But his brother was naturally foolish and his strength was average. How could he contend with those who treated scheming as a daily meal? Since his escape after being heavily wounded, he had been poisoned by the bone-devouring poison and had no combat ability, only some tricky methods. The scholar remained silent, continuing to sit cross-legged, gazing at the clouds rolling and unrolling in the sky. He used to have 2 or 3 friends. If he sought them out, perhaps he could borrow 3,000 spirit stones based on his face. However, firstly, the risk was too great. He wasn't sure if his old friends would report him, and the price on his bounty order was not low. Secondly, he was, after all, once the first sword cultivator of Great Xia. He had his own arrogance. He was unwilling to let people he once knew see him in such a desperate state. If it weren't for his younger brother, he would rather die standing than sit like a cripple on the cliff edge of Wentian Market, like a good-for-nothing, being gawked at by passers-by, and haggle with those forces trying to recruit him. All right. The scholar glanced at his younger brother, whose face was anxious, his mouth constantly opening and closing but unable to utter a word, and said softly, "I have an idea. Don't worry." His brother was a bit foolish and had no concept of how many spirit stones were involved. He thought most people could easily produce the price he wanted, and that as long as someone would stoop to talk to him, he would recognize them as master. But in reality, 3,000 spirit stones, many forces within 100 li radius couldn't produce that amount. Those who could afford that price didn't think much of him. He also didn't dare to say that his teleportation range was 200 li. A golden core stage cultivator proficient in movement techniques could fly 100 li in 10 breaths with full effort, so 100 li was often considered the immediate strike range of a golden core stage cultivator. Exceeding 200 li meant he had already surpassed the immediate strike range of 2 golden core stage cultivators. At that time, the attracted forces would be considerable, and those forces knew him. Even if he had changed his appearance, some subconscious habits that he couldn't change would always expose him, thereby putting his brother in danger with him. If he said 10,000 li to the outside world, then it might be the Great Xia royal family that arrived. Unfortunately, after being heavily wounded and escaping that day, all his spirit treasures and storage rings had been plundered, leaving only this natal spirit treasure that had been with him for a long time. As his cultivation realm fell, it also became an ordinary yellow rank medium-grade spirit treasure. It wasn't worth much. Back in the day, when Blue Edge left its sheath, who didn't recognize his white-clad? Within 3 breaths. Where in the world could he not go? Were these mere child's play? Were these just empty words? But now, all these past glories only remained in the picture book he cherished in his arms. This was a picture book drawn by a scholar with him as the protagonist when he became famous throughout the world, recording his various awe-inspiring deeds. The book was titled White-Clad Sword Cultivator. The book did not record his entire life, but it was his life, like a fleeting epiphyllum. At this moment, Chen, located at the bottom of the canyon, was continuously striking the ground with his blade to attract the attention of the human-faced spiders in the stone caves. The stone caves on the rock wall were extremely narrow, and it was impossible for him to enter them to fight, which would be extremely disadvantageous for him. Soon, in the stone caves on the rock wall, countless pairs of light blue eyes slowly emerged from the cave entrances. Soon, the first human-faced spider crawled out of the stone cave and climbed onto a transparent spider web in the air. Its eyes stared straight at him, constantly rolling its eyeballs. It looked extremely creepy. This spider was 3 feet wide, with a baby's face embedded in its head, constantly emitting sounds like a baby crying, echoing freely in the depths of the canyon, as if driving them away. Immediately after, the second and third human-faced spiders also crawled out. It was then that Chen discovered that the rock wall around the stone caves was covered with transparent spider webs, which were almost invisible to the naked eye even in the sunlight. Who? Chen slowly took a breath, waved his right hand, and released all the wraiths he had stored. In an instant, the surroundings became cold and eerie. A full 10 Qi refining stage 6 and 1 Qi refining stage 8 wraiths, as well as the Yao beast wraiths he had killed in Wentian Market, immediately rushed towards those stone caves. They wantonly destroyed the spider webs and provoked the human-faced spiders. These human-faced spiders had high cultivation and liked to swarm. He dared not be careless in the slightest. Wraith summoning was just a green word art, but it was exceptionally useful. Creatures killed by his wraiths could also be converted into his wraiths. Such a useful word art, he wondered why it was only a green word art. He felt it should at least be a yellow one. But at this moment he had no time to think about it. Under the provocation of the wraiths, those human-faced spiders had already let out baby-like screams and rushed straight towards them. Good! Come on! Chen grabbed Huang Shikai's collar with his left hand, held his long saber in his right, and slightly bent his legs. When the first human-faced spider rushed in front of him, he suddenly let out a low roar, used Huang Shikai to block the human-faced spider pouncing in midair, and then slashed out with his long saber. With just this one slash, the human-faced spider was heavily wounded and fell to the ground. He took another step forward and delivered another slash. Bursts of white light floated from the human-faced spider's corpse and drilled into his body. Before he could celebrate this small gain, more human-faced spiders were already screaming and rushing over. Die! Just as Chen, covered in blood, once again slew a human-faced spider charging at him, and instinctively quickly scanned his surroundings with the saber in his right hand, searching for his next target. However, the entire canyon, besides him, no longer had any standing creatures. The ground was covered with the corpses of human-faced spiders, and crimson blood splattered throughout the depths of the canyon. Fei Long was also slumped to the side, panting heavily. For him, the intensity of the battle was a bit outrageous. Neither of them was seriously injured. Huang Shikai was very useful, and almost all the blood on his body came from the human-faced spiders. And just as he killed this last human-faced spider, he suddenly felt a surge of warmth in his body. With a sense of intuition, he looked inward, and a panel wrapped in mist reappeared above his dantian. Cultivation has greatly increased, officially entering Qi Refining Stage 8. Please choose from the 3 random word art below within 10 breaths. 1. Word art name: every blade of grass and tree. Word art rank: white. Word art effect: each time you break through a small realm, you will receive 3 spirit stones. 2. Word art name: start over. Word art rank: white. Word art effect: the quality of your foundation establishment will slightly increase. Each time foundation establishment fails, your cultivation realm will drop to Qi Refining First Level. 3. Word art name: never give up. Word art rank: white. Word art effect: when your foundation establishment fails and your cultivation drops, the cultivation progress you gain from killing Yao beasts within the Qi Refining stage will increase by 100-fold. Chen looked at the 3 word art that popped up in front of him, his mouth involuntarily slightly agape, a hint of pain flashing in his eyes, his face becoming somewhat distorted, and the veins on his right hand, which held the long saber, also bulged. These 3 white word art, taken individually, were generally very ordinary. They belonged to the type that had some use but not much. The first word art, for a mortal who didn't pursue high cultivation, was definitely comparable to a 7-colored entry. 3 spirit stones for each small realm breakthrough were enough for a mortal to live a prosperous life. The second word art could only slightly increase the quality of foundation establishment, but after foundation establishment failed, one would have to start over from Qi Refining First Level. As for the third word art, it was basically better than nothing. Even if foundation establishment failed, the cultivation would only drop to Qi Refining Stage 9 early stage, just a little short of great perfection. Even if the cultivation progress gained from killing Yao beasts during this period was 100 times faster, it would at most only take a few days to return to Qi Refining Great Perfection and then prepare for foundation establishment again. But if these 3 word art could be possessed simultaneously, requiring only a little starting capital, then that would simply be unimaginable. As long as he was given enough time, if foundation establishment also had no limit on attempts, the number of spirit stones he produced daily might be more than what spirit stone mines yielded. If he could acquire word art again after his cultivation dropped and he re-breakthrough, then he would truly take off, but this thought was probably unrealistic. But why? Why could he only choose one out of the 3 word art, and not all of them? He did not make a choice within the first 10 breaths, but instead turned his head with a somewhat pained expression, looking at Fei Long with a last glimmer of hope. Fei Long, is there any heaven and earth treasure that allows one to choose word art that were previously abandoned? Everyone in this world, for the first word art acquired at Qi Refining First Level, had no choice. They used whatever was given, and if they were unlucky, they just had to accept it. However, from the Foundation Establishment stage onwards, each major realm breakthrough allowed a choice of 1 out of 3 word art. There was enough choice space for cultivators to combine the word art most suitable for themselves. It seems so. Although Fei Long didn't understand why Chen Xiu suddenly looked like this, he quickly frowned in thought and replied, "Yes, I'm sure. I saw it on the auction list at an auction in Wentian Market. There's a talisman that can only be produced in the Heavenly Dao secret realm, called the Heavenly Dao Retrospective Talisman. It allows a cultivator to reselect word art that were previously abandoned. But the price is not low. Nothing that comes out of the Heavenly Dao secret realm is cheap, and it can only select the word art that were abandoned during the immediately preceding 3-choice selection. For example, if you are a nascent soul stage cultivator, then using this item will only allow you to choose the remaining 2 word art that were abandoned when you made your 3-choice selection for breaking through to the nascent soul stage. You cannot choose word art that were abandoned when you broke through to the golden core stage. If, after you broke through to the nascent soul realm, you had other opportunities during that period that gave you another 3-choice word art opportunity, then you can't even choose the 2 word art abandoned when you broke through to the nascent soul stage. You can only choose the word art abandoned in the most recent 3-choice selection. As for below Foundation Establishment, the Qi Refining stage simply doesn't have a 3-choice opportunity. You use whatever you're given. You can choose at most 1 abandoned word art at a time. If you want both abandoned word art, then you need to buy 2. What's wrong? Fei Long looked at Chen Xiu with some confusion. Brother Chen Xiu, why are you suddenly asking about this? Chapter 23. How about the monthly salary increasing by 500 every year? It's nothing. Chen Xiu suppressed the excitement in his heart, took a deep breath, and forcibly pushed down his emotions. No matter what, there was finally hope. He immediately chose the first white word art. Every blade of grass and tree. Almost at the same time, he saw a large amount of spiritual qi suddenly begin to condense in front of him. And then, in the blink of an eye, 3 low-grade spirit stones formed and fell to the ground. The word art he chose was that every time he broke through a minor realm, he would receive 3 spirit stones, and this breakthrough was also counted. Ah! Fei Long looked at the 3 spirit stones that had formed out of thin air, somewhat bewildered, and for a moment he didn't react. Could the spiritual qi in the air condense into spirit stones? What kind of operation was this? Chen Xiu did not answer Fei Long's question. Instead, he looked up and asked, "How many spirit stones does that Heavenly Dao Talisman, the Heavenly Dao Retrospective Talisman, that you just mentioned, sell for in Wentian Market?" "It depends on the rank." Fei Long patiently explained. The Heavenly Dao Retrospective Talisman is divided into 4 ranks: low, medium, high, and excellent. Among them, the low-grade retrospective talisman can only be used by cultivators below the Foundation Establishment stage. In other words, you can only reselect the word art that you discarded from the 3 options during the Qi Refinement stage. But there's no opportunity for 3-choice 1 word art during the Qi Refinement stage, so the low-grade retrospective talisman is the cheapest, only 50 spirit stones each. And the higher the rank, the more expensive it gets. A medium-grade retrospective talisman is already upwards of 500 spirit stones. This is only applicable to word art discarded from the 3 options during the Foundation Establishment stage. After all, think about it, as your cultivation gets higher, the rank of the word art you can randomly get also increases. At that time, a high-grade or excellent Heavenly Dao retrospective talisman might be equivalent to a golden or pink word art. No matter how expensive it sells for, people will still be scrambling for it. Moreover, it has to be said that Fei Long's intelligence sources were truly abundant, naturally suited for exploring new worlds, but Chen Xiu no longer had the patience to listen. He only heard one thing, which was, a low-grade Heavenly Dao retrospective talisman only costs 50 spirit stones. Most people wouldn't need it, but he just happened to be able to use it. But even so, the price was already comparable to 10 yellow-grade low-rank spirit treasures produced in the heavenly Dao secret realm. Just then, the resentful spirit of Huang Shikai in Chen Qiu's hand completely disappeared between heaven and earth, and at the same time it brought nearly 30 more Qi refinement stage 7th and 8th level human-faced spider resentful spirits. This was another method that would be of great use at a crucial moment. This green word art was really easy to use. Before the two could converse further, they suddenly heard a piercing whoosh from the sky. They instinctively looked up and saw the bearded man plummeting straight down from high in the sky. The two quickly dodged. Bang! This was the first time the two of them had seen the bearded man fall from a high altitude in front of them. After smashing a considerable pit in the ground, he patted his backside as if nothing had happened, climbed up from the ground, grabbed their arms, and then the three of them instantly vanished from their original spot. Only a mess was left behind. All right. The scholar, sitting cross-legged on the ground, saw that Chen Qiu and the other man were not seriously injured, and a hint of surprise flashed in his eyes. But he still smiled and said, "Next, it's time to send you two back to Intian Market. We shall meet again if fate allows." Wait! Chen Qiu looked seriously at the scholar sitting cross-legged in front of him and said earnestly, "Didn't you say this morning that my price was too low? Work for me. I'll give you 3,000 spirit stones up front, and 500 spirit stones every month thereafter, and an increase of 500 spirit stones in monthly pay each year. How about it?" The scholar, who was subconsciously preparing to refuse, heard the price and his mouth involuntarily slowly opened. 3,000 spirit stones up front, and 500 spirit stones in monthly pay. This had far exceeded his expectations. His expectation was to be given 3,000 spirit stones up front, which would be his life-saving money. He wouldn't need monthly pay after that. Just food and lodging would suffice. As long as he had 3,000 spirit stones to buy a heavenly Dao treasure jade to remove the bone-eating poison from his body and live a few more years, he would be content. But this young man in front of him directly offered him 3,000 spirit stones? This was the most he had ever been offered. To be honest, it was hard to refuse. However, the scholar quickly reacted, sizing up Chen Qiu's clothes and attire, his expression somewhat indescribable. Young master, are you sure you can afford this amount of spirit stones? Or are you making a promise to me first and then going back to apply to your family?" To be honest, this man in front of him didn't look like he had so many spirit stones, but he also didn't look like a young master from a prominent family. Even the most low-key young master wouldn't wear such common hemp clothes. "I'm sure." Chen Qiu squatted down with a serious expression, looking at the scholar at eye level and softly said, "It's not anyone giving it to you, it's me giving it to you. I don't have a family behind me. I'm a lone cultivator wandering the Jianghu. My power might not be great, but the treatment I give you will definitely not be low. However, you need to give me 5 days. I can only give you these spirit stones after 5 days. During these 5 days, you need to work for me. Even if I break my promise after 5 days, you won't lose much by working 5 days less. How about it?" "Who?" The scholar remained silent, looking up at his brother, who was beside him, full of anticipation. After a long while, he hoarsely said, "All right, but let me say this up front. My brother and I were injured years ago, so we have almost no combat power. We only have this fast travel ability. It's hopeless to rely on us to defend against enemies." "Understood. That's enough. What should I call you, young master?" "Chen Qiu." "Good." The scholar, sitting cross-legged on the ground, with some difficulty straightened his upper body, then leaned slightly forward and softly said, "This disabled person lost his name years ago. People in the Jianghu call me Scholar." Scholar greets young Master Chen. The bearded man standing beside him, for the first time, showed a rare expression of excitement. He also straightened his body and solemnly bowed to Chen Qiu. "Good." Chen Qiu also said, "Good," with a joyful expression. With these two joining him, many of his plans could be greatly accelerated. It was good that they had no combat power. Otherwise, his current strength was still relatively weak, and if two very strong people suddenly joined, he wouldn't be able to control them. This was much better. He met these two this morning and thought they would demand a high price. It turned out 3,000 spirit stones was enough. At this moment, Chen clearly didn't realize that if he had to earn 3,000 spirit stones by chopping firewood, the Great Xia dynasty would probably have fallen 3 or 4 times over before he earned that amount. If these spirit stones were really that little, these two brothers wouldn't have been unable to find a good master in Wentian market for several years. With you two joining, I believe we will certainly make a name for ourselves in Great Xia soon. But there's a small problem right now. Chapter 24. Blessed by Heaven, the secret realm reappears. Chen Xiu, feeling a bit unsure, lightly coughed while clenching his hand into a fist, then softly said, "Actually, I am not a mortal. I am the current young lord of a large family from outside the Great Xia Kingdom. I accidentally fell into the Great Xia Kingdom, and all my cultivation dropped. This led to my natal storage pouch, hidden in my dantian, being completely inaccessible because there is no spiritual qi to activate it. I must use a secret method to extract spiritual qi from spirit stones to barely open a crack in my natal storage pouch within my dantian, allowing me to retrieve my past wealth. It's not much. I just need 100 spirit stones. You two have probably been doing this business in Wentian market for a long time, haven't you? Have you earned 100 spirit stones? I wonder if you could lend them to me first. Within 7 days, I will give you both the 3,000 spirit stones we agreed upon, along with these." As his words fell, all 3 people, including Fei Long, were stunned into silence, their faces blank. Even Fei Long lowered his head, his mouth twitching awkwardly. Even for someone as thick-skinned as he was, he felt a bit embarrassed at this moment. "Chen Gongzi." After a long silence, the scholar said in a low voice with a complicated expression, "You even deceive a disabled person. Even if you're going to deceive, can you at least pay attention to your methods? At least you should package yourselves a bit. Using such a crude trick makes me feel insulted. I'm serious." Chen Qiu himself knew that these words were indeed absurd and could not be explained well. He could only say as sincerely as possible, "I can't offer a better explanation. You can only judge based on your past experiences." He really needed 100 spirit stones. With these spirit stones, he could buy 2 Heavenly Tao retrospective talismans, then find a corner to hide, and then reselect the 2 Heavenly Tao talents he had previously abandoned. By continuously and rapidly increasing his cultivation, and then quickly falling back to the Qi refining first level, he could obtain a large number of spirit stones. From Qi refining first level to Qi refining 11th level, there are 10 realms. Each realm can give him 3 spirit stones, adding up to 30 spirit stones. As long as he kept repeating the process of foundation establishment failure and starting over, he could obtain infinite spirit stones. As long as he had 100 spirit stones as startup capital, he could earn 1,000, 10,000, or even 100,000 spirit stones. Just like that, the 4 people stood on the edge of the cliff, staring at each other in silence for a long time, and the atmosphere gradually became awkward. Fei Long had already begun to look around with a face full of despair. It was clear that the negotiation was about to fall apart. In this situation, the other party would most likely just leave them. It was a full 20 li from here to Wentian market. There was no official road in sight. He didn't know what kind of desolate place this was. It would be a huge challenge for them to even walk to a place with human habitation. They couldn't starve to death in this wilderness. Could they? All right. Just then, the scholar, who was sitting cross-legged on the ground, suddenly nodded and said, "Chen Gongzi, I believe you. I'll lend you 100 spirit stones." He didn't know why he suddenly felt a crazy urge to gamble that these two were not swindlers. Perhaps after waiting for several years in Wentian market without any hope, he had gradually become desperate. Suddenly, a lifeline appeared, and even if he knew it could break at any moment, he wanted to grasp it. Just then, Heavenly Tao blessing. Responding to the sincere summons of the residents, the Heavenly Tao bestows a blessing. A Heavenly Dao secret realm will appear beside the stream 3 li west of Fufing City in the Great Xia Kingdom. Entry is limited to cultivators at Foundation. Establishment stage 6th level and below. The secret realm type is Challenge. It will open in 5 days. A voice from the 9 heavens entered their ears. It's actually a challenge type Heavenly Dao secret realm appearing in Fufing City? A hint of surprise flashed in the scholar's eyes. Then he calmed down and said thoughtfully, "No wonder I've vaguely felt many forces sending people to Wention Market recently. But that's not right, is it? Could it be that there's now a way to predict where Heavenly Dao secret realms will appear in advance? It's the Heavenly Dao talent." Chen Xiu was in a good mood at this moment and said with a smile, "We received news that the Huang family in Fufing City has a Heavenly Dao talent about to appear. Now it seems it's probably in this Heavenly Dao secret realm. However, such a huge commotion probably ruined all the Huang family's secrecy efforts these past few days." Heavenly Dao talent? The scholar shook his head and denied. No. This is a Heavenly Dao secret realm that only cultivators at Foundation Establishment Stage 6th level and below can enter. It's indeed possible for a Heavenly Dao talent to appear, but a Heavenly Dao secret realm of this level definitely doesn't contain only a Heavenly Dao talent. There are other valuable treasures as well. Moreover, where a Heavenly Dao secret realm appears absolutely cannot be predicted in advance. Only the Heavenly Dao knows. The Heavenly Dao talent is very valuable, costing at least 1,000 spirit stones. It's a word art that can be passed down through bloodline relationships. It's passed down to males, not females. Only male direct bloodline can inherit it. Females cannot. This also means that the Heavenly Dao talents of most families are relatively stable in most cases. And there won't be a situation where a daughter marries out and their family's Heavenly Dao talent becomes someone else's. The effect of the Heavenly Dao talent is completely random. It's both a curse and a legacy. For example, it could be a word art that speeds up the cultivation progress of movement-type cultivation techniques by 30%. Or it could be a word art that doubles the speed of sword control. Or it could be a word art that slows down the speed of sword control by 5% and so on. Wait, Fei Long asked somewhat confused. Are all Heavenly Dao talents like this? Are there no other effects? For example, having 3 heads? No, the scholar explained with a calm expression. Heavenly Dao talents all provide beneficial or detrimental effects on the cultivation speed, or cultivation technique effect, of a certain type of cultivation technique. How much it increases or decreases is completely random. There are pros and cons. It all depends on luck. Moreover, Heavenly Dao talents are independent and have almost no lendong effect with other word arts. For example, there's an old city 300 li away with a family called Qiu family. Their ancestors acquired several Heavenly Dao talents back then, and one of them makes sword control speed 90% slower. Heavenly Dao talents are deeply rooted in the bloodline and cannot be removed. This means that the Qiu family members rely entirely on flying Yao beasts and official roads for travel. No one cultivates sword riding flight, as the speed of sword control is not much faster than running a few steps. Furthermore, not a single sword cultivator has appeared in 100 years. Most Heavenly Dao talents passed down by families have both advantages and disadvantages. Firstly, the combat style and cultivation direction are fixed. Most direct descendants in the family basically can only follow the old path. The advantage is that the family has walked this path countless times, and it's very smooth. The disadvantage is that the weakness is too obvious. I remember there is only one large family in the Great Xia Kingdom where all Heavenly Dao talents have beneficial effects and not a single one has a detrimental effect. That family is called the Xia family, and they are also the current Great Xia royal family. For the Xia family to have more than a dozen consecutive Heavenly Dao talents all with beneficial effects and not a single detrimental one can only say that their ancestors were favored by the Heavenly Dao. Besides that, there's no other explanation. Some small families yearn for this Heavenly Dao talent. Selling it for around 1,000 spirit stones is not a problem. Especially for a foundation establishment family like the Huang family in Fufing City, this is already a huge opportunity. The Huang family's annual income probably isn't even 1,000 spirit stones. Whether they use it themselves or exchange it for spirit stones, it's very good. But, the scholar paused for a moment before softly saying, if the news you mentioned is true, then these are two separate matters. The Huang family indeed found an opportunity for a heavenly Dao talent that is about to appear, but the appearance of a heavenly Dao talent has no commotion whatsoever. It belongs to the fated one. And this challenge-type heavenly Dao secret realm just happened to be blessed in Fufing City. Within a few days, 2 heavenly Dao secret realms have blessed Fufing City, and there's an additional heavenly Dao talent appearing. This is indeed strange. Could it be that something big is about to happen in Fufing City recently? He pondered for a long time with some confusion, getting no answer before continuing. The challenge-type heavenly Dao secret realm is a trial-based type. For each trial passed, a large reward will be obtained, and the risk of death is very low. And this type of secret realm can often accommodate a large number of people. Within these 5 days, many forces within a few hundred li will probably send people here to let their disciples enter for trials and seize opportunities. The next 5 days will be very lively. Chanxiu nodded, took the storage pouch handed to him by the scholar, took a deep breath, and then looked towards the horizon, softly saying, take me back to Tian Market first. With his current strength, he was not yet strong enough to seize opportunities in this heavenly Dao secret realm. But this secret realm only opens in 5 days. What the situation would be like in 5 days was hard to say. Chapter 25. I dare not calculate all the hexagrams, fearing the ghosts and gods of heaven and earth. With the scholar and the other person joining them, short-distance travel had lost its meaning for Chanxiu. Teleporting out of thin air, as long as he didn't encounter a powerful being who could restrict space, he could basically go anywhere in the world. In the blink of an eye, he was back at Tian Market and arrived at the auction house Fei Long had pointed out. Zhao Family Business Association. It was said to be a family business with considerable influence, primarily generating income through trade and auctions. The low-grade Heavenly Dao retrospective talisman he sought was available here, not as an auction item, but sold individually in the shop. Can't you make it any cheaper? Standing in the Zhao Family Business Association shop, Fei Long looked at the shopkeeper and, with a face full of sincerity, haggled, how about 10 spirit stones each? You know this item is basically useless to most people. If you sell it so expensively, no one will buy it. The shopkeeper glanced at Fei Long with a strange expression and said, if no one can use it, why are you buying it? If no one will buy it, how can it have a price? Naturally, if someone buys it, it has a price. 90% of people in the Qi refinement stage don't even get the chance for a 3-choice word art, but opportunity exists in this world, and this item is prepared for those people. Since you're here to buy it, it means you need it. 50 spirit stones is really a fair price. It can't go any lower. Fei Long was momentarily speechless. What he said made a lot of sense, and he couldn't refute it. This price is fine. Chanxiu didn't want to waste too much time. Time was the most important thing for him right now. He exchanged money for goods, tucked the 2 low-grade Heavenly Dao retrospective talismans into his storage pouch, and turned to leave the shop. As Chanxiu walked out of the shop, he didn't stop for a moment, walking straight along the main path towards the outskirts of Tian Market. The scholar and the other person were waiting for him at their usual spot. He had killed the Huang family's 7th elder, but the Huang family either hadn't received the news yet or were too busy to come after him. At least for now, there had been no follow-up. Just then, young friend, please wait. An old man with silver hair, sitting on the street, holding a tattered black banner, called out, blocking his path. I see many lonely souls and vengeful spirits clinging to you. Their resentment is heavy, and your glabella is darkened. I fear you will soon face a bloody disaster. 1 spirit stone, let me tell your fortune. Perhaps it can save your life. On the black banner, 2 lines of somewhat crooked words were embroidered with white thread. Divination dares not be exhaustive, fearing the spirits of heaven and earth. Words cannot be spoken plainly, fearing chaos in the world. Chen Qiu casually glanced at the fortune-telling old man, not stopping for long. He simply nodded slightly to indicate he understood, then continued walking forward. This old man either spoke casually or truly saw something. Naturally, many lonely souls and vengeful spirits clung to him, but they were all just malevolent spirits. He knew his own business. These were all his methods, not some kind of malevolent spirit possession. He quickly walked out of Wentian Market and arrived at the edge of the cliff. Just as he was about to speak, he saw the scholar and the other person gazing into the distance from the cliff edge, seemingly at something. Chen Qiu followed the scholar's gaze, his eyelids twitching slightly, a hint of shock flashing in his pupils. In the clouds on the horizon, slightly below the cliff, a middle-aged man, over 40 zhang tall, was carrying a great saber over 30 zhang long on his shoulder. He stepped on lotuses that continuously appeared beneath his feet, walking through the air towards Wentian Market with a calm expression, under the gaze of countless people. Good heavens! Fei Long couldn't help but gape slightly, his face filled with disbelief as he stood rooted to the spot. If that saber were to strike down, even if unsharpened, just the flat of the blade could crush a large number of people. Was this a cultivator? Wasn't this just like a giant? The scholar, who was sitting cross-legged on the ground, said softly. This person is Zhao Yisher, ranked 107 on the Great Xia Tianjiao ranking. He has a foundation establishment stage 6th level cultivation and no family behind him. In his early years, he was an unremarkable loose cultivator. Later, it is said he encountered a great opportunity and subsequently joined the Chao Tian sect. He possesses the pink word art, sky-piercing giant. For every Yao beast he kills, his height increases by 1 li, and his body size also grows. It's a very strong body cultivator pink word art, and he's a prodigy whose reputation has only recently begun to rise in these past few years. That's not right, is it? Fei Long, standing beside him, looked at the towering strong man who was stepping on green lotuses, one step at a time, towards them from a distance, and asked in confusion. His height increases by 1 li for every Yao beast he kills, but after all these years, he's only a little over 40 zhang tall? Shouldn't he be over 100 zhang? With his strength, it should be easy to specifically target weak but numerous Yao beast populations and kill them, right? The scholar nodded and softly explained. Pink word arts are of extremely high rank. Ordinary people can never possess them in their entire lives. However, most pink word arts cannot directly translate into combat power. For example, the pink word art, sky-piercing giant. A pink word art has only one effect, which is to allow a certain aspect of yours to increase without limit, such as the height and body size of sky-piercing giant. Or, for example, I know a pink word art called I have a sword, and its effect is that for every Yao beast you kill, your flying sword speed increases by 1 milli. And in the immortal realm, where talented individuals abound and strong cultivators are countless, being 40 zhang tall is almost useless. It would instead make you a living target, the focal point in a crowd. Only by collecting some complementary word arts, such as those similar to the larger the body, the higher the body strength, or more compatible cultivation techniques, can the full power of a pink word art be unleashed. Otherwise, a single pink word art doesn't have much strength. The reason pink word arts are strong is due to their rarity and their limitless growth potential. To truly unleash the strength of a pink word art, one must possess other word arts that complement it. It's just that, in this world, there are thousands upon thousands of word arts. Aside from word arts obtained through breakthroughs in major realms, how difficult is it to obtain additional word arts through other means? Before he obtains these complementary word arts, his height and size, no matter how great, are meaningless. And this heavenly Tao secret realm that has appeared, his cultivation just happens to meet the entry requirements. A secret realm of this rank has the potential to grant additional word arts. His sudden arrival here should also be in preparation to enter this heavenly Tao secret realm and take a gamble. Chen Qiu stood rooted to the spot, looking at the strong man in the sky who, though still very far away, seemed to be within reach. His expression was complex and he didn't speak. He also had a pink word art. Dan Tion Expansion. Unique. Moreover, it was a unique pink word art, and he had already matched it with a compatible white word art. Once he breakthroughs to the Foundation Establishment stage and learns a spell, his combat power will increase significantly. Only then would he truly have a certain degree of influence in this unfamiliar world. Let's go. He said no more, instead signaling the scholar to prepare to leave. The scholar nodded in understanding, and with Blue Edge shooting towards the clouds, the four quickly vanished from their original spot. Chapter 26. His cultivation level has greatly increased, and he has entered the 11th level of Chi refining stage. When he reappeared, he was back in the familiar wasteland, but at a different fissure, and the depths of the canyon were also filled with human-faced spiders. Time to get to work. Deep in the canyon, Chen Xiu took a deep breath, summoned all the accumulated human-faced spider vengeful spirits, and continuously repeated his previous work. With this group of human-faced spider vengeful spirits fighting for him, even though the number of human-faced spiders here was far greater than in the previous location, he didn't feel too much pressure. Of course, before that, he first used 2 Heavenly Tao retrospective talismans to reselect the 2 word arts he had abandoned at Chi refining stage 8. One was Start Over, and the other was Never Give Up. Fei Long sighed softly, stretched his aching body, and mumbled under his breath before swinging his long saber and joining the battlefield. He was responsible for luring monsters, and Chen Xiu was responsible for killing them. He clearly knew one thing. Chen Xiu had a 1 in 3 opportunity during the Chi refining stage. He didn't know what kind of opportunity it was, but he was certain that anyone with such an opportunity was not an unknown person. Being with Chen Xiu was much safer than wandering alone. At least they could look out for each other. On the cliff above the canyon, the bearded man's voice was hoarse as he said, "Brother, do you believe Chen Gongzi is the young lord of a large family from outside the Great Xia Kingdom?" "Of course not." The scholar sitting cross-legged on the ground couldn't help but laugh. "If even you are suspicious, how could I believe it?" Chen Gongzi didn't expect us to believe him when he said that. He just made up a casual excuse. If I'm not mistaken, he must have some opportunity that he finds inconvenient to reveal. But what does that have to do with us? As long as he is willing to pay and can afford the price, we will work with him. Even if we are truly deceived, so be it. There is no choice in this world that comes without any cost. This world is too vast, so vast that every moment, a large number of people gain opportunities. Gaining opportunities is too normal, or rather, among those who can cultivate to the golden core stage and above, who hasn't encountered an opportunity? Opportunities are not rare. Being able to live long enough is rare. Dense swarms of human-faced spiders continuously died, and the depths of the canyon echoed with countless piercing cries of infants. The number of human-faced spiders here was far greater than those they encountered in the previous canyon. And Chen Xiu's cultivation was constantly improving. Cultivation has greatly increased, officially entering Chi refining stage 9. Please choose from the 3 random word arts below within 10 breaths. This time, there were no particularly good word arts. He just glanced at them and quickly selected a white word art. Word art name: Wood Chopping Saint Body. Word art rank: White word art. Word art effect: When you chop wood, it will be more effortless and you will not feel tired. This time, all 3 random word arts from his realm breakthrough were useless white word arts. But he didn't mind. He just picked one randomly, which could be used for word art self-destruction as a trump card. The effect of word art self-destruction is that by self-destructing a certain word art, one can unleash a full power attack that crosses one major realm of cultivation. If he self-destructed a word art at Foundation Establishment Stage 1, the power unleashed would be a full power attack at Golden Core Stage 1. Simple, brutal, and effective. The only drawback was that it wasted word arts, and he happened to have no shortage of word arts. Soon, the sky gradually darkened. As the stars shifted, the moon slowly emerged above the dark clouds, and night winds constantly swept through the canyon. This weather isn't right. Fei Long, panting heavily with exhaustion, put one hand on his hip and looked up. He saw that the sky was covered in dark clouds at some point, and the atmosphere seemed quite oppressive. It looks like a heavy rain is coming. He was now at Qi refining stage 7. Although he mostly lured monsters and left them for Chen to handle, the scattered monsters he killed over such a long period had also allowed him to break through to Qi refining stage 7. Damn it! Killing monsters really makes cultivation increase quickly. And Chen cultivation had once again reached a breakthrough. Cultivation has greatly increased, officially entering Qi refining stage 10. Please choose from the 3 random word arts below within 10 breaths. Again, 3 useless word arts. He quickly scanned them and once again chose a white word art. Word art name: aptitude for alchemy. Word art rank: white. Word artifact: your success rate in refining medicinal pills will slightly increase. He felt like this white word art might have appeared once before. Is the chance of randomly getting this white word art so high? He also didn't know how many types of white word arts there were in total. Later, he would go to the market to see if there was any intelligence like a word art library for sale. Chen, while thinking about miscellaneous things in his mind, sat on the ground, panting with some fatigue, and pulled out his leather water pouch from his storage pouch, bringing it to his mouth and gulping down water. And by his side, a full 50 or 60 human-faced spider vengeful spirits were fighting for him. If not for the fact that vengeful spirits could only last for 1 hour, there would be even more human-faced spider vengeful spirits fighting for him. Continue. After a brief rest, Chen stood up from the ground again, his body aching slightly as he gripped the hilt of his saber, his gaze resolute, and once again charged towards the countless human-faced spiders surging towards him. This work was much more tiring than him chopping wood. But the positive feedback it brought was also much stronger than chopping wood. Ordinary mortals usually earned over 100 copper coins a day from chopping wood, but since he was a transmigration, he was unregistered and could only sell the chopped wood at a low price to others, earning meager profits, not even enough to eat. Finally, after an unknown amount of time spent swinging, Chen only felt that all his muscles were aching, and the sky above was already covered in dark clouds, as if a downpour accompanied by strong winds could suddenly descend at any moment. And he had finally broken through to Qi refining stage 11. Cultivation has greatly increased, officially entering Qi refining stage 11. Please choose from the 3 random word arts below within 10 breaths. 1. Word art name: impeccable body. Word art rank: white. Word artifact: after you turn 18, for every 10 years you maintain an impeccable body, you gain a random word art. 2. Word art name: stealing jade and picking flowers. Word art rank: white. Word artifact: after you turn 18, for every person with the impeccable body word art you break, you gain a random word art. 3. Word art name: all or nothing. Word art rank: white. Word artifact: all word arts you possess will be forcibly cleared. From now on, you cannot acquire or possess any permanent word arts, but you can randomly gain 10 temporary word arts daily. Chen looked at the panel in front of him and sighed softly. This was already the 3rd realm breakthrough where he hadn't randomly received a word art suitable for him. These 3 word arts were of little use to him, especially the 3rd word art. Not only was it useless, but its side effects were also immense. He relied on word arts to survive. If they forcibly cleared all his word arts, wouldn't that be pure nonsense? Without much thought, he casually chose the impeccable body word art. Currently, including this word art, he already had 3 completely useless word arts that could be self-destructed at will. This was a significant trump card. If the situation was urgent, the person of heavenly flaw word art, which enhanced his 5 senses, could also be self-destructed. It's good to have many word arts. Even if they are useless, it's fine. He can just self-destruct them for fun like fireworks. Chen stood in the canyon, looking up at the dark clouds. The strong winds gradually swept through the canyon, chilling his hemp clothes. After a night of fighting, the surroundings were covered with the corpses of human-faced spiders, and his cultivation had already reached Qi refining stage 11. He only needed to fill the cultivation progress of Qi refining stage 11 to reach Qi refining great perfection, and then he could begin foundation establishment. The progress was much faster than he had imagined. Chapter 27. From now on I, Chen Yang, will be your nobleman. The sky grew darker and darker, without a trace of light. Endless black clouds, stretching for an unknown distance, pressed down over the entire wilderness. Inside the canyon, a cold wind howled like the roar of ghosts and gods, chilling one to the bone. Although no raindrops were visible, the scent of rain was already palpable. This weather. Fei Long, slightly out of breath, looked up at the sky and couldn't help but murmur. This weather doesn't look like a normal heavy downpour, does it? Normally, if the black clouds have been piled up for so long, it should have rained by now. Could it be some ancient devil head appearing? Then, realizing something, Fei Long's expression changed slightly, and he quickly spat 3 times. Tui, tui, tui. Chen Xiu glanced up, ignoring Fei Long, and instead looked at the remaining human-faced spiders around him, tightening his grip on his blade. These human-faced spiders had been killed to the point of being terrified, but they were vicious beasts without intelligence. Even if they knew charging forward meant death, after several sharp screeches, they still charged forward against the cold wind. The slaughter began anew. The cultivation progress from Qi refining stage 11 to Qi refining great perfection was not much. After about half an hour, Chen Qiu felt something and introspected his body. There was a significant amount of spiritual Qi surging within his meridians. At this moment, his body strength far exceeded his own at Qi refining stage 7. He could probably fight 10 Fei Longs simultaneously. If that Huang family 7th elder appeared before him again, he wouldn't even need to summon the resentful spirits. He could kill him with his own hands. It was just that he could vaguely feel that the spiritual Qi in his meridians was somewhat insufficient. He had continuously broken through several minor realms tonight. His meridians had widened considerably, but he hadn't absorbed spiritual Qi. It was like the container had expanded, but nothing had been put into it. He had to fill his meridians with spiritual Qi. Only then would the success rate of breaking through to foundation establishment greatly increase. If the spiritual Qi in the body was insufficient, the failure rate of foundation establishment was very high. But failure was precisely what he wanted. Who? After taking a deep breath, Chen Qiu sat cross-legged on the ground, focusing all his attention on his body. He circulated his mind cultivation technique, slowly gathering the spiritual Qi in his meridians towards his dantian. Under the aggregation of spiritual Qi, the Dao Foundation platform gradually materialized in a phantom state above his dantian, and was slowly turning from illusory to solid. The names of the word art he possessed also gradually appeared on the Dao Foundation. Seeing that the foundation establishment process was already halfway complete, the spiritual Qi in his meridians was no longer enough for foundation establishment. The Dao Foundation platform, which was about to solidify, instantly collapsed when no further spiritual Qi surged in. Almost in an instant, the cultivation aura on Chen Qiu's body began to rapidly and drastically plummet. Qi refining stage 9. Qi refining stage 6. Qi refining 3rd level. In just the blink of an eye, Chen Qiu's cultivation had already dropped to Qi refining 1st level. The backlash from the failed foundation establishment made Chen Qiu's mouth fill with a metallic taste, and he couldn't help but spit out a large mouthful of crimson blood, splattering it onto the gray-yellow ground in front of him. "Brother Chen Qiu, are you all right?" Fei Long, who was sitting nearby guarding Chen Qiu, was startled by this sight and immediately became flustered. "You're not forcing foundation establishment, are you? I thought you were circulating your mind cultivation technique to restore spiritual Qi. Brother, what are you rushing for? You were immortal yesterday, and today you want to force foundation establishment. You don't need to push yourself so hard. And why did you suddenly drop to Qi refining 1st level? Even if foundation establishment fails, it's impossible to drop directly back to Qi refining 1st level." "I'm fine." Chen Qiu wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and carefully checked his physical condition. There was no major impact. That mouthful of blood was simply because his body's strength had suddenly decreased, and his body was a bit unaccustomed, causing some capillaries to rupture. Then he looked up and around. There were still dozens of heavily wounded human-faced spiders remaining. These were all the human-faced spiders left in this canyon. Originally, there should have been a human-faced spider clan here, but he had killed so many that only this many remained. And these dozens of heavily wounded human-faced spiders were specifically left by him for this very moment. He lightly waved his hand, signaling a human-faced spider resentful spirit guarding him to rush forward and kill a heavily wounded human-faced spider. The moment that human-faced spider died, panels wrapped in mist kept popping up above Chen Qiu's dantian. Cultivation greatly increased. Cultivation greatly increased. Just by killing a Qi refining stage 7 human-faced spider, his cultivation shot up like a rocket, instantly reaching Qi refining stage 7. At the same time, spiritual Qi suddenly began to gather in front of him, eventually forming 18 spirit stones that fell from mid-air onto the ground. Very good. Chen Qiu sat cross-legged on the ground, looking at the scene before him, and genuinely smiled. This was the happiest he had smiled since his transmigration. This meant that all his ideas had succeeded. As long as he was given enough time, he could earn enough spirit stones to buy the entire immortal realm. And because of the white word art Never Give Up, the cultivation progress he gained from killing Yao beasts after a failed foundation establishment would be 100 times faster. This was also why he could reach Qi Refining Stage 7 directly by killing a Qi Refining Stage 7 Yao beast while at Qi Refining first level. However, each minor realm breakthrough only gave spirit stones and did not give him another chance to choose one of 3 word art. It made sense, otherwise these few word art shouldn't just be white word art. This is. Fei Long, standing by, looked at the dozen or so spirit stones that appeared out of thin air, and Chen Qiu's cultivation aura that suddenly returned to Qi Refining Stage 7 in an instant, completely confused and bewildered. He didn't understand what had happened. A small trick. Chen Qiu, in a rather good mood, patted Fei Long's shoulder and said with a smile, "To me, you are a benefactor. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have embarked on the path of cultivation yesterday. But from now on, I, Chen Qiu, will be your benefactor. As long as I live for one day, you will never again be captured by the Xianhua sect as a supplement like before. Unless I also create a Xianhua sect." After casually teasing Fei Long, Chen Qiu didn't want to waste any more time. The cultivation progress required for subsequent minor realm breakthroughs was much higher. He had to kill 2 more Qi Refining Stage 8 human-faced spiders before he could successfully break through to Qi Refining Great Perfection. He gained 12 more spirit stones. Thus, in less than the time it takes to drink a cup of tea, 30 spirit stones were easily acquired. And Chen Qiu, familiar with the process, quickly performed foundation establishment again, and quickly failed foundation establishment again, dropping back to Qi Refining first level, and then quickly returning to Qi Refining Great Perfection. In Fei Long's view, Chen Qiu's cultivation at this moment was like a roller coaster. In the blink of an eye, his cultivation dropped to Qi Refining first level, and in another blink, his cultivation returned to Qi Refining Great Perfection, accompanied by spirit stones raining down around him. An endless stream of spirit stones appeared out of thin air, falling onto the ground. Thump, thump, thump. Another 30 spirit stones appeared out of thin air, scattered on the ground. Fei Long, who had been waiting nearby, quickly spotted them and immediately stuffed them into his storage pouch. Only then did he look up at the canyon sky with a bit of guilt. He was a little afraid of being discovered by those 2 brothers. Although he didn't know what kind of method Brother Chen Qiu was using, one thing was certain. If Chen Qiu's ability to continuously create spirit stones out of thin air were to spread, they wouldn't survive for 3 days. Chapter 28. Edict of Heaven. Give him the foundation of heaven. Chapter 28. Heavenly Tao Edict. Bestow upon him Heavenly Tao Foundation Establishment. Time passed, though he knew not for how long. Logically, the sky should have brightened long ago, but the dark clouds above showed no sign of dissipating. Instead, they grew even denser, making Fei Long gradually lose track of time in the indistinguishable day and night. Yet, there was still only the intent of rain but no raindrops. and Fei Long's legs were already trembling slightly. Oh my God! Fei Long's eyes were red, and his face was mournful, with deep unease in his eyes. He continuously stuffed spirit stones into the storage pouch in his embrace. He no longer knew how many spirit stones he had put in. He only knew that all the storage pouches on him were full, and he even took several storage pouches from Chen Qiu's brother's embrace. Otherwise, the storage pouches would not be enough. At first, he was excited. So many spirit stones were enough for them to make a name for themselves in this unfamiliar world. But the more spirit stones there were, the more he began to fear. Once this news spread, the two of them would probably instantly become public enemies. It was enough. They really didn't need so many. His stomach truly couldn't handle so much. Chen Qiu remained seated cross-legged in his original spot, maintaining that posture for an unknown period. The human-faced spiders around him had all been killed, and he no longer had Yao beasts to kill to advance his cultivation progress. So he was preparing to change locations. But who would have thought? Perhaps due to the drastic change in the sky, a large number of human-faced spiders came surging towards him from another side of the canyon depths, as if fleeing for their lives. This batch of human-faced spiders was like fuel, providing him with great assistance. Thanks to this, he could stay in this place and didn't need to move. From the beginning, when he would vomit blood every time a foundation establishment failed due to physical discomfort, to later, after adapting, he no longer needed to vomit blood when foundation establishment failed. However, perhaps because of the excessive number of foundation establishment failures, he felt a bit dizzy. Just as his cultivation once again reached Qi refinement great perfection, and he was about to continue failing foundation establishment with practiced ease, a faint and ethereal voice suddenly echoed in his ears. Heavenly Dao Edict. The Heavenly Dao senses that within 100 miles of Fufeng City in the Great Xia Kingdom, there is a mortal with unyielding iron bones who has failed foundation establishment 999 consecutive times, yet is still unyieldingly attempting foundation establishment. Such perseverance shames all living beings. Bestow upon him Heavenly Dao Foundation Establishment. May all living beings take this as an example. This ethereal voice from beyond the heavens resounded throughout the entire Great Xia Kingdom. Countless people looked up at the sky, listening carefully to this Heavenly Dao Edict with some confusion. Many were stunned, their faces filled with shock, clearly finding it hard to imagine. It's just that these people were not admiring the mortal's perseverance. Instead, they were a bit bewildered. Is the foundation establishment stage that difficult to break through? Can one fail 999 consecutive times? Logically speaking, the more times one fails foundation establishment, the narrower their Dao foundation becomes, which means their Dao foundation will hold less spiritual qi. They couldn't even imagine how narrow a Dao foundation would be after failing foundation establishment over 900 times, if not for a heavenly Dao foundation establishment. Perhaps casting a yellow-grade low-rank spell would directly exhaust all the spiritual qi in the Dao Foundation. This yellow-grade low-rank spell might not even be castable. However, they didn't expect that he would indeed gain a blessing in disguise and obtain Heavenly Dao Foundation Establishment. Seeing these 4 words, many people in the Great Xia Kingdom cast envious glances towards Fufeng City. If they had known that failing foundation establishment 999 times would grant Heavenly Dao Foundation Establishment, they would have gone long ago. And some Qi refinement stage cultivators' minds also began to stir. They wondered if this reward still existed after failing foundation establishment 999 times now. Heavenly Dao Foundation Establishment, as the name suggests, is a Dao foundation built with the Heavenly Dao as its foundation. It can only be obtained under extremely rare special circumstances, and only when breaking through to the foundation establishment stage. In the Great Xia Kingdom, very few people have possessed Heavenly Dao Foundation Establishment over the years, and all who have are prodigies among prodigies. The last famous person to obtain Heavenly Dao Foundation Establishment seemed to be a sword cultivator, but he had already died. The benefits of Heavenly Dao Foundation Establishment are also extremely simple and direct. The foundation is extremely stable. Whether it's the speed of absorbing spiritual qi or the sturdiness of the Dao Foundation in combat, it is several times stronger than an ordinary foundation establishment. Moreover, if one can break through to the Golden Core stage in the future, the Golden Core formed on the Heavenly Tao Foundation establishment will also be far superior to an ordinary Golden Core. There is also an extremely powerful benefit. Heavenly Tao Foundation establishment does not require the operation of a mind cultivation technique. The Tao Foundation can rotate on its own to absorb spiritual qi, although the speed is slower than operating a mind cultivation technique. This means that even when you are sleeping, defecating, or eating, your Tao Foundation is still rotating to absorb spiritual qi and improve your cultivation progress. It's like a means of production. After the Heavenly Tao Edict sounded in his ears, Chen found that the surrounding spiritual qi began to uncontrollably surge into his body. He hadn't activated any mind cultivation technique, but the spiritual qi still continuously and rapidly filled his meridians. Almost instantly, his meridians were filled, and then, under his internal vision, his Tao Foundation rapidly solidified. In the blink of an eye, Foundation establishment succeeded. A Tao Foundation 110 centimeters wide and 100 centimeters high was rooted in his dantian. The entire Tao Foundation was white jade-like, with faint golden flowing light visible on its surface. And it was this inconspicuous golden flowing light that made the entire Tao Foundation appear extraordinary. The names of the word arts he possessed were neatly engraved on the surface of the Tao Foundation. When he underwent Foundation establishment, he hadn't prepared any Foundation establishment pills that could enhance quality and success rate, nor had he prepared any heaven and earth treasures. Logically speaking, his would have been the most ordinary 100-centimeter Tao Foundation. But because he possessed a word art that could slightly improve Foundation establishment quality, the width of his Tao Foundation became 110 centimeters. At this moment, the Tao Foundation was slowly rotating, attempting to absorb spiritual qi from the outside world. But, after rotating for a long time, not a single wisp of spiritual qi was absorbed. Chen, now at the Foundation establishment stage, could already release spiritual qi from his body. He could fully unleash the power of a yellow-grade low-rank spirit treasure, use spells, and also sense the density of external spiritual qi. And in his perception, there was not a single wisp of spiritual qi in the depths of the canyon at this moment. It was like a spiritual qi desert, and a very dry one at that. After Chen slowly opened his eyes, he saw Fei Long standing anxiously to the side, restless. "Oh my goodness, you're finally awake." Fei Long's voice trembled slightly, and his hands, shaking, handed 7 or 8 storage pouches to Chen. "All the spirit stones are here. I didn't count them carefully, but there are definitely over 20,000. What do we do next? If people find out about this, our divine souls will be extracted. First time I've seen someone feel spirit stones are too hot to handle." Chen took the storage pouches and stuffed them all into his embrace. He stood up and stretched his limbs, feeling the power brought by his Foundation establishment stage first layer cultivation. For the first time in this world, he felt a hint of confidence, and then he couldn't help but grin. Although he hadn't counted carefully, he knew how many spirit stones there were. 29,970 spirit stones, if nothing unexpected happened. At this moment, he could already pour spiritual qi into the Heavenly Slayer spirit treasure long saber in his hand, thereby unleashing the full power of this spirit treasure. His current Tao Foundation width was 110 centimeters. The Yao beasts he killed before Foundation establishment were not counted, otherwise it would be at least several thousand centimeters now. Next, he only needed to do 2 things: as much as possible purchase a spell that he could unleash with maximum power, preferably one produced in a Heavenly Tao secret realm so that upon learning it, it would directly reach major achievement. Then, buy more talismans, communication stones, medicinal pills, and other supporting items that could preserve his life and enhance his combat power. Secondly, expand the width of his Tao Foundation as much as possible. Allow his Tao Foundation to hold more spiritual qi. This way, he would truly have a certain say in this world, or rather, the right to live standing tall. The lightning guiding spell could only draw down a bolt of lightning from the 9 heavens to attack enemies. Using this yellow-grade medium-grade spell with a Foundation establishment stage first layer cultivation would often nearly exhaust most of the spiritual qi in his body, but if his Tao Foundation could hold enough spiritual qi, then it wouldn't be just a lightning guiding spell. It would be 100-mile lightning punishment, 0 frame strike, instant kill on sight. Chen Qiu, steadying his mind, took out a low-grade talisman from his embrace as prearranged. After spiritual chi surged into it and activated it, a crimson light instantly shot straight up into the sky from the depths of the canyon. This was a low-grade talisman he bought at Wentian Market. It was very cheap, only 1 tael of silver. He bought 10 of them casually at Zhao's shop. When he couldn't afford communication stones at the time, this was a better option for transmitting information. When the two were brought back by the bearded man to the edge of the crack above the canyon, the scholar sitting cross-legged on the ground looked at the two with a complex expression. After a long while, he hoarsely said, "Chen Gongzi, what were you two doing down there?" That mortal near Fufeng City who failed Foundation establishment 999 times in the Heavenly Tao Edict wouldn't happen to be Chen Gongzi, would it? This place is already sparse in spiritual chi, and the spiritual chi within dozens of miles around here has been completely absorbed by your canyon below. This commotion is no less than that of breaking through to the golden core stage. He suddenly felt that Chen Gongzi's claim of being the young lord of a certain hidden family outside the Great Xia Kingdom might not be a lie. To cause such a huge commotion, if it wasn't a breakthrough to the golden core stage, it could only be the operation of a mind cultivation technique to absorb spiritual chi. A mind cultivation technique capable of such a commotion would have to be at least a profound high-grade mind cultivation technique. He had never heard of anyone possessing such a level of mind cultivation technique in the Great Xia Kingdom. It was a legendary item recorded in historical texts. Such a level of existence is not something a mortal could touch by encountering an opportunity. If not relying on the profound heritage passed down by a large family, the probability of a chi refinement stage mortal possessing such a thing is not much lower than the probability of directly obtaining a 7-colored word art during the first random word art in the chi refinement stage. Oh, not a chi refinement stage mortal. Chen Gongzi is now at the Foundation establishment stage first layer. Chapter 29. Entry name, Late Bloomer. Chapter 29 Word art name, Late Bloomer. It's nothing. Chen Qiu didn't explain much, just smiled and shook his head. I've been here for over a day. Let's go back to Wentian Market first. 1 day. The scholar shook his head. 2 days have already passed, and there are less than 3 days until the breakthrough-type secret realm in Fufeng City opens. The weather has been like this for the past few days, and the sun hasn't risen. Soon, the group quickly returned to Wentian Market, while the two scholar brothers stayed in their usual spot. Chen Qiu and Fei Long entered the city alone. Has it been 2 days already? Chen Qiu frowned in confusion. To be honest, he really had lost track of time. For the past 2 days, he felt like an assembly line machine, constantly performing Foundation establishment and failing, with almost no rest. But did this process really take 2 days? And he originally didn't feel any fatigue or hunger. But when he learned that he hadn't closed his eyes for 2 days and 2 nights, he suddenly felt a little tired, though not strongly, only this hunger. You're already in the Foundation establishment stage, and you still get hungry. Of course. Fei Long said helplessly. The Foundation establishment stage only extends one's lifespan. Compared to mortals, one's lifespan is a full 200 years, enough to support a family. Many Foundation establishment families only have one Foundation establishment stage cultivator as the family head. But it's only an extension of life. One still can't cut off from the human world. The sky has been like this for the past few days, so I didn't know 2 days had passed. I just felt very tired, but I didn't realize so much time had gone by. He looked up at the sky above Wentian Market. Wentian Market was built on the highest peak of the Wentian mountain range, thousands of feet above the ground. Standing there, the black clouds stretching for thousands of miles above seemed to be right overhead. Speaking of which, this weather is really strange. It gives people a sense of security that everyone might be doomed at any moment. For the past 2 days, he basically did one thing, stuffing spirit stones into his storage pouch. His expression was almost entirely in a dual state of excitement and fear, so he had no time to think about sleeping. Let's go. Chen Qiu shook his head, planning to come out and spend tomorrow. Let's find a random restaurant to fill our stomachs, then get some sleep. We can talk about it tomorrow morning. All right. Chogo, are those two brothers not coming? The scholar said he doesn't like entering Wentian Market. He probably has some taboos. Don't worry about them. By the way, he looked at Fei Long with a strange expression. Didn't you used to call me Brother Chen Qiu? Why are you suddenly calling me Chogo? Cough. Fei Long's expression became slightly serious and he said earnestly, when two people walk together, the capable one is the teacher. One who is a teacher is a father for life, and an elder brother is like a father. Now that you are a foundation establishment stage cultivator, it is only natural to call you Chogo. Very good. After finding a random restaurant and eating something, Chen Qiu and Fei Long found an inn nearby and rented 2 rooms. After a simple wash, Chen Qiu, though tired, still sat at the table and poured himself a cup of warm tea for his stomach. With his eyes closed, he looked inward at his body. At this moment, above the foundation establishment, a panel wrapped in mist was slowly suspended. Although the word art on the panel said to make a choice within 10 breaths, as long as you didn't look inward at the panel, it wouldn't count towards the 10 breaths. So, there wouldn't be a situation where you break through during a battle and don't have time to look inward, causing the 10 breaths to pass. Cultivation greatly increased, officially entering the foundation establishment stage first level. Please choose from the 3 random word art below within 10 breaths. 1. Word art name. 9 in strength. Word art rank. White. Word artifact. Possesses 9 in. 2. Word art name. Late bloomer. Word art rank. Green. Word artifact. When your remaining lifespan is less than 10 years, you will gain 3 random word art. 3. Word art name. Focus power. Word art rank. Green. Word artifact. If you learn the spell Lightning Guiding Spell, the power of your use of this spell will increase by 50%. Looking at this familiar panel within his body, Chen Qiu, sitting on the chair, felt quite emotional. Who would have thought that just a few days ago he was a strong young man diligently chopping wood, not even in the chi refining first level. A mortal among mortals. Yet, in just a few days he was already a foundation establishment stage cultivator. In this somewhat chaotic world, he finally had some confidence of his own. Among the 3 word art in front of him, he chose the 3rd one almost without thinking. The first word art was a complete waste of his choice. He wasn't a woman, so why would he randomly get this word art? Or could men also have this word art? What would that become then? Wouldn't it be 9 in and 1 ox? He couldn't imagine what that situation would be like, so it was better to keep his distance. He actually liked the 2nd word art. He liked any word art that could give more word art, but the trigger condition was too difficult. After his breakthrough to the foundation establishment stage, his lifespan was 200 years, with over 170 years remaining. In other words, for this word art to be triggered, he would have to wait at least another 160 years, by which time the day lilies would be cold. The 3rd word art was the most suitable for him. This was also the first time he had seen a word art that provided an amplification bonus for a certain spell. If he chose this word art, it meant he had to follow the path of a spell cultivator, otherwise this word art would be wasted. This happened to suit him perfectly. The path he wanted to take was that of a spell cultivator. After all, with the pink word art Dantian expansion in hand, not taking the spell cultivator path would be a pure waste. Time to sleep. Even if the sky fell, he would deal with it after waking up tomorrow. Chen Qiu, whose spirit was exhausted to its limit, stuffed the storage pouch containing a large amount of spirit stones under his pillow, and then drifted into a deep sleep, his right hand tightly gripping the hilt of his saber. It was dawn. Chen Qiu groggily walked to the window of his room. The sky had finally brightened. The black clouds above had finally dispersed last night. The stone path outside the window was wet, indicating that there must have been a heavy rain last night. After a simple wash, he put on his clothes and walked out of the room. Fei Long had already woken up at some point and was waiting for him outside, but his 2 dark circles clearly showed that he hadn't slept well. Didn't sleep well? Yeah. On the main road of trading area, in Area 7 of Wentian Market, Chen Qiu and Fei Long began their spending spree for the day. After 999 consecutive Foundation establishment failures, he obtained a total of 29,970 spirit stones. This was an extremely exaggerated number. It should be known that almost most Foundation establishment stage loose cultivators didn't have 20 or 30 spirit stones in their pockets. Some disciples of large sects or prominent families might have a few hundred spirit stones, or even over 1,000. But absolutely no Foundation establishment stage cultivator would carry tens of thousands of spirit stones and wander around. Chapter 30. Entry Name, The Root of Self-Extinction. Chapter 30. Word Art Name, Root of Self-Destruction. If it weren't for the Heavenly Tao interrupting him and forcefully giving him the Heavenly Tao Foundation establishment, he definitely wouldn't have stopped after earning so little. But something like Heavenly Tao Foundation establishment couldn't be bought with spirit stones. It's hard to say whether it was a gain or a loss. Just like now, as he strolled along the main road, the Heavenly Tao Foundation establishment within his body slowly rotated, automatically absorbing the spiritual chi from the surrounding air to gradually increase his cultivation progress. Although the speed was indeed a bit slow, he didn't need to close his eyes and meditate to circulate his mind cultivation technique. It was like cultivating on autopilot. The spiritual chi in the Tian mountain range was not dense. In fact, this should be common knowledge in the cultivation world. Places with dense spiritual chi were often either forbidden lands or occupied by large families and sects. A Tian market like this was unlikely to occupy a place with dense spiritual chi. First, let's change clothes. Chen had long wanted to change out of the clothes Fei Long had given him. The size was completely ill-fitting, too loose, making him look a bit sloppy. When the two walked out of a shop, they both looked completely refreshed. They bought 8 sets. All were high-grade materials. Each set cost 2 spirit stones, totaling 16 spirit stones. They each took 2 sets and also brought 2 sets for the scholar's 2 brothers. In reality, even the best materials were still mundane, not worth this price. But each set of clothes had a small dust-proof array, inlaid with gold thread. Its function was very simple. It kept the clothes from getting dusty. Besides that, it had no other use. If not for this dust-proof array, these clothes would be worth at most 10 taels of silver. Fei Long muttered discontentedly, carefully stroking the fabric of his new clothes, but the corners of his mouth couldn't help but turn up. The fabric was really good, and the craftsmanship was excellent. The black and red long robe design perfectly suited his aesthetic, and even his big belly looked exceptionally imposing. It was just that the price was too expensive, and it wasn't very convenient for combat. That damn shopkeeper even told him that people who bought such clothes generally didn't fight personally. But it couldn't be denied that they looked good. Chen chuckled without speaking. He chose a green robe for himself. Walking through the ancient town after the rain, he had the feeling of stepping out of a traditional ink wash painting. He felt the dustproof feature was very necessary, as it could prevent blood from dirtying his clothes. He also bought himself a rather expensive jade feather fan, worth a full 1 spirit stone. He casually flicked it. TSK. This feeling was really good, much more comfortable than chopping firewood. On to the next shop. Shopkeeper, where are you? Come out and greet customers. Do you have jade transmission rings? What's the price? Fei Long strode into the Zhao Family Business Association, which they had visited a few days ago, and spoke loudly with full confidence. He had to admit, although these clothes were a bit expensive and not entirely worth it, somehow wearing them made his confidence surge. 5 months after his transmigration, he hadn't been this arrogant in a long time. TSK, this feeling was so refreshing, much better than being a supplement in the Xianhua sect. The shopkeeper who received them this time was still the same one from before. Hearing the sound, he quickly emerged from the counter. He paused slightly upon seeing Fei Long and Chen Qiu, recognizing them as the 2 who had bought a low-grade Heavenly Tao retrospective talisman from him a few days ago. Although he was somewhat surprised inside, he maintained a gentle smile on his face. Of course we do. The Zhao Family Business Association's shops are spread throughout the Great Xia Kingdom. We naturally have jade transmission rings, which are essential for every force. Come, look this way. The shopkeeper led the two to a corner of the shop. These are low-grade jade transmission rings. 1 master ring, 7 subordinate rings, allowing transmission within 10 li. The price is 1 spirit stone, and the spiritual chi within the talisman can be used for 1 year. Next to it is the medium-grade jade transmission ring. 1 master ring, 50 subordinate rings, allowing transmission within 100 li. The price is 50 spirit stones. These are generally supplied to families or small sects. The one hanging at the very top is the high-grade jade transmission ring. 1 master ring, 300 subordinate rings, allowing transmission within 300 li. The price is 300 spirit stones. The shopkeeper with graying temples paused slightly before tentatively adding, high-grade jade transmission rings are generally used by sects of considerable power. Through a high-grade jade transmission ring, disciples traveling abroad can be recalled or missions can be issued. All 3 types of jade transmission rings are usable for 1 year. After 1 year, they need to be repurchased. Which kind would you like? How much is that one? Chen Qiu's gaze fell upon a ring carefully placed in a half-open jade box at the very top of the shelf in front of him. There was a display card next to the jade box, showing the ring's name. Jade Transmission Ring. This one. The shopkeeper carefully took down the box and handed it to the two, introducing it. This is a jade transmission ring. It's more convenient to use than a jade transmission ring. Both its transmission speed and distance far exceed those of a jade transmission ring. It's made from a very rare material, mother-child stone, cut into several pieces. 1 master ring, 10 subordinate rings. And it can not only transmit sound but also images. It's generally used by the core true disciples of major sects, or the direct descendants of large families. A set like this costs 1,000 spirit stones. There's no limit to its usage period. As long as it's not destroyed in combat or lost, it can be used indefinitely. Chen Qiu nodded slightly. Although he didn't speak, he clearly preferred this jade transmission ring. Among other things, if he needed to transmit a message during a battle, speaking into a ring would definitely be much more convenient and faster than pulling out a jade transmission ring from his bosom. Although the price was a bit high, the advantage of permanent use made it acceptable. Wrap this one up first. We'll settle the bill together later. He scanned his surroundings. Do you have any talismans or similar items for self-preservation, offense, or accelerating cultivation? Yes, of course. Even though this gray-templed shopkeeper was well experienced, his cloudy eyes couldn't help but gleam with excitement. Being able to afford a jade transmission ring meant he must be a young master from a major power, and coming to buy it himself instead of with a parent indicated that his authority was already quite high, and he could stand on his own. This power must be considerable. The jade transmission ring had been in this shop for over a decade, originally not even intended for sale, as no power within 100 li could afford such a thing. It was displayed merely to showcase the strength of their Zhao family business association and to make the prices of the jade transmission rings below seem not so expensive. He had met young masters who could afford such jade transmission rings before in the capital. They bought talismans like they were wholesaling them to do business at home. This was a big deal. Oh, right. The shopkeeper suddenly remembered something, pulled out 2 invitation letters and an auction list from his bosom, and handed them over. Tonight, there's an annual auction at the Wentian market. This year, quite a few items are prepared for auction. Here are 2 reserved invitation letters. Are the 2 of you interested? Oh, Chen Qiu took the auction list. He was just casually glancing at it, but his gaze was quickly drawn to a word art. Your auction actually has word art for sale? Word art name, Root of Self-Destruction. Word art rank, green. Word art effect. Self-destroy 1 ox to obtain a random white or green word art. The more you self-destroy, the more random word arts you obtain. That's natural. The shopkeeper's face was filled with pride. After all, it's the annual auction of the Wentian market. Many of the auction items are provided by our Zhao Family Business Association. This word art also belongs to our Zhao Family Business Association. Our Zhao Family Business Association is a business association with shops spread throughout the Great Xia Kingdom. Chan Qiu's expression was a bit strange as he turned to look at Fei Long Qiugo. Fei Long said expressionlessly, word by word, "There are outsiders here. Give me some face. Let's talk about it in private." The shopkeeper, who was about to continue his introduction, suddenly had a cloudy look in his eyes. He turned and walked to a nearby counter, muttering, "Why is there dust here? It wasn't cleaned. I'll go wipe it." After the shopkeeper left, Fei Long then turned to Chan Qiu with a serious expression. "Qiugo, you once said I was your benefactor. I feel that this behavior might not be an act of repaying a drop of kindness with a gushing spring. What do you think? Don't overthink it." Chan Qiu cleared his throat before saying in a low voice, "I know. I just thought you might want it. Since you don't, then forget it. But are you really not considering it? That's 9 random word arts. Most people don't have your opportunity. How about we buy it first? What if you need it later? Then we can use it. P.S. Those who are chasing the book at midnight on this day are, without exception, probably single. Perhaps they are lying in bed, phone connected to a charger, lights off, ready to sleep. My heart aches for you all. I'm sending 200 red envelopes of 0.52. So you can also have your own 520. Search for XING's 520 in Alipay's password red envelopes. Those working the fields, please pay attention to safety. You've worked hard.